Okay, here we go. We're taking you someplace new today. And I won't tell you yet where we're going, but I will say, shh, be very, very quiet. We hunting river monsters.
Hold my hand, ooh baby, it's a long way down to the bottom of the river. Hold my hand, ooh baby, it's a long way down, a long way down.
There have been innumerable cases of people disappearing around the Monongahela River, either by accidental drowning, suicide, murder, or under other more mysterious circumstances. On average, 2 to 3 bodies a month are pulled from the three rivers just around Pittsburgh alone. Far from the city's lights that shimmer about its mouth in downtown Pittsburgh, the Monongahela River rises more than 200 miles to the south amongst some of the most remote reaches in the Appalachian Mountains. Some of its tributaries descend out of the forest so old and large that only the most intrepid hunters have seen them. Given its sources, it's hardly surprising that this ancient river has inspired more than its fair share of lore, including monster lore. The Monongahela River, a 130-mile-long river that runs between both West Virginia and Pennsylvania, and is only one of 2 rivers that flow north, the other one being the Nile, has long had legends of strange aquatic beasts associated with it, including 2 resident monsters dwelling beneath its surface. One such creature, a river monster, is said to dwell in the Mon River, as it's known locally, near the town of Reevesville in Marion County. It's called the Agua, the Reevesville monster, or the Holt monster. It's a freshwater cryptid from West Virginia and the Pennsylvania area, and it has been seen in the Ohio, Allegheny, and Monongahela rivers. Its origins are said to be from a prehistoric time when giant turtles roamed the area it was sighted in. Although unrelated, it is interesting to note that giant human skeletons have been recovered in Reevesville near the confluence of Paw Paw Creek and the Monongahela River. The Agua's legend originated with the Native Americans who inhabited this land long ago. Some natives had stories that it was a monster generated by the legendary chief Hiawatha. The Native Americans in this area have always had bad feelings around the Monongahela, which, according to a Moravian missionary, David Zeisberger, he gave this account of the naming. In the Indian tongue, the name of this river was Monongahela, which signifies a high bank, which is ever being washed out and therefore collapses. And this may well be the unstable cliffs along the river. So maybe it's a story they made up to scare people away from the river, but others through generations claim to have seen some kind of monster, either described as a large lizard or turtle, sometimes the size of a bear, with 2 heads and a long tail it uses to grab its prey. While native tribes in the area have long known about the large aquatic beasts living within the river, European settlers to Pennsylvania and West Virginia had to learn about it from stories and legends. The native people would warn settlers not to venture too close to the water's edge, as the large, powerful jaws of the Agua were more than capable of plucking a victim off the shore and dragging them back down beneath the surface of the water. The beast was often thought to drown its victims first and store the bodies in its den, only to devour them later when the time was right. According to folks who are familiar with the legendary creature, many more aguas existed in the river and also in the Ohio River before colonial times. It is a true testament to the impact of European colonization, when even the river monsters experienced dwindling population numbers as settlers pushed west. Even though Agua is typically described in the same way as most other river monsters, often seen as dark shapes below the water, churning the surface, knocking over canoes, pulling down animals floating on the surface, etc. It does differ from its other monstrous aquatic cousins in one unique way. It is also able to survive on land. It is a serpentine creature said to reach the size of about 500 pounds. It's reddish-brown in color and has deadly razor-sharp teeth. The monster is said to dwell in the river during the day, but at night it comes out onto the land where it stalks its prey. Reportedly, the agua hunts deer. It lides along game paths and thrashes an unsuspecting deer with its tail and pulls it into the water where it develops the helpless animal. The aggressive creature was described as not having fins or flippers, but 4 stubby little legs instead. As previously mentioned, the agua was said to be able to strike fast at potential prey on the shore, but if for some reason it missed, it would quickly dart out of the water chasing its desired dinner until caught. The beast would then either carry or drag its victim's body back into the river, where it would store it for later under the surface. Its long, thick tail would drag the ground the entire way back to the water, oftentimes creating deep slide marks in the loose earth. Stories of the agua describe it as being almost turtle-like in appearance, nearly 20 feet long. Early stories tell of encounters with the creature, including in 1745 the troubles of a family that lived alongside the Monongahela River. While fishing, an enormous turtle emerged from the water and snatched a 12-year-old boy from the shore. The family searched for the child, but the boy was never seen again. Days later, the family was awakened by the sound of a large animal rubbing against their cabin. One of the children dared to look out and saw a huge, dark, turtle-shaped bulk against the house. The family moved soon after. From a letter in the late 1700s. There is an animal in this country which excites the admiration of all who have had an opportunity to view it. Being amphibious, it resides in the water during the daytime, but at night repairs to the land in quest of its prey, which are deer. They lie in the deer paths undiscovered behind an old stump until the deer, unaware of its enemy, passes over him. This creature immediately seizes him and entangles him within its tail, which is 15 feet in length, and notwithstanding all the deer's exertions to free itself, draws him into the water where he drowns and devours him. One of our men recently discovered one early in the morning with its prey, of which he informed some of his company who were nigh. They soon came upon him and killed him with clubs, but the deer was dead. It weighed 444 pounds. They live in a large muddy bank where we find no bottom. It has 2 heads in shape resembling a turtle, and by the Indians it is called agua or agu. This is from a youth stationed at Fort Harmar in what is now Marietta, Ohio, in a letter to his parents in Connecticut, telling of a 2-headed giant deer-killing water monster in the confluence of the Muskingum River and the Ohio River that was called Agua or Agu by the local Delaware or Shawnees. However, the legend took hold and became the Agu, moving upstream to the Monongahela River. Today, the letter resides in West Virginia University's manuscript collection. Many researchers believe that legends of the Agua could have started after local tribes came across the possible rogue alligator that had made its way up the Mississippi, into the Ohio River, and eventually into the Mon. This theory could explain the stories of animals and even people being snatched off the shore, drowned, and stored away for later in a den. It would also explain the slide marks leading from the water into the dirt and vice versa. Besides, phantom alligator sightings have long occurred in many northern states throughout history and still do to this day, so that theory isn't so far-fetched as one might think. Other researchers, though, believe this would be a larger-than-normal alligator snapping turtle to blame for the stories and legends. This would explain the turtle-like experience that Agua is said to have, as well as the aggressive nature, carnivorous appetite, and reddish-brown skin. Is this theory also plausible? Yes, it is. While normally found down south, alligator snapping turtles can be found as far north as Maine and survive just as well, albeit moving much slower and staying out of sight in the colder months. Many skeptics who seek to explain the agua believe that the Native Americans told embellished stories to try to keep the ever-encroaching white man away from the rivers. Perhaps there is some truth to this, but it certainly seems that something large and frightening existed in the river, especially when you fast forward to modern times when the creature was spotted by a number of fishermen. A rash of agua sightings took place in the early 1980s. The Fairmont Times reports on a number of sightings that occurred in the area in their May 15, 1983 issue. According to the reports, something that was at least 20 feet long and reddish-brown in color had frightened quite a few local fishermen. The creature was said to have had a mouth lined with razor-sharp teeth and a long, flat tail that whipped the water into foam. The most commonly cited agua report occurred in the summer of 1983. Coal miner John Edward White was fishing for channel catfish on the Monongahela at the mouth of the Paw Paw Creek at Reevesville, downstream of Fairmont. White recalled having an eerie feeling that night, but continued fishing in spite of it. He noticed small waves in the water, but there were no boats in the area and nothing that should have caused it. Small fish began jumping out of the water and were swimming up Paw Paw Creek. It was as if they were being chased by something. Suddenly a 6 to 8 foot tall fin burst out of the water about 30 feet in front of him, moving toward him through the water. Then he saw a huge serpentine tail emerge with a swooping motion. With that, the creature turned and dived into the water and disappeared. White packed up and left as fast as he could. He never returned to fish at that spot. Nate Moreno and Jake Byers told WBOY.com that they were catfishing one night at the West Fork River, a tributary of the Mon River, when they saw a huge ball-shaped thing swimming in the river and thought it was an unfortunate drowning human. It looked like someone swimming on their hands and knees, crawling across the rocks. You know, maybe a bum fell in the water. Let's go see if we can save him. And then we're sitting there yelling at this black shadow thing crawling up the rocks and realized it wasn't even looking, wasn't acknowledging us. Then they saw its long tail and realized the creature was about 10 feet long. The creature was swimming upstream far faster than anything they were familiar with, including a snapping turtle, but it was gone by the time they were able to shine their vehicle headlights on the river. I know what an alligator snapping turtle looks like. I've caught them before, and they'll get massive. I wouldn't be surprised if it was just a massive variation. But I know how shallow the water is here, and just general familiarity with the river, you know that something that is existing and thriving here that otherwise shouldn't be. Nate Moreno said that what he and his friend saw was no alligator snapping turtle. So, what was it? An expert in lore of the Monongahela, Les Odell, publisher of West Virginia Cryptids and Strange Encounters, says the Monongahela is an increasing popular destination for monster hunters. The area is renowned for its strange history, Bigfoot sightings, giant skeletons found in the 1800s, and even a strange plant-like creature, aptly named Vegetable Man, sighted in the woods near Reevesville in 1968, Odell said. So it's only fitting that the Monongahela River is said to hold a creature such as the agua. Who knows what could lie in its depths? Further north towards Pittsburgh, Monongahela is a river monster from West Virginia and Pennsylvania. It is said to be half man, half fish, and was named after the Monongahela River where it was sighted. According to WestVirginiaExplorer.com, to some sources, Monongahela has been lurking in the river since the French and Indian War. Bill Eggert in the Johnstown Tribune Democrat in 2015 wrote in an article that records from the period chronicle skirmishes between the British soldiers and bizarre creatures from the river. There were a large number of sightings between 1930 and 1950. Sightings were reported weekly, and the Pittsburgh Police Department responded by creating a task force specifically to deal with the aquatic creature. Eggert alleges that in 2003, photos of Monongahela taken from a fishing boat appeared online, but were mysteriously removed. Whatever it is that has been supposedly spotted many times over the years, the latest being this past summer, when people claimed to have seen an alligator-looking creature in the Mon. The Agua and Monongahela, legendary beast that plies the Monongahela and Ohio rivers, waiting to take its next victims. So are there river monsters in the Mon? Maybe, maybe not. But when you see a strange, mysterious object floating in the river, always beware.
Hold my hand, ooh baby, it's a long way down to the bottom of the river. Hold my hand, ooh baby, it's a long way down, a long way down. If you get sleep or if you get night,
the cock's gonna call in the morning, baby.
and check the cupboard for your daddy's gun.
Red sun rises like an early warning.
The Lord's gonna come for your firstborn son.
His hair's on fire and his heart is burning.
So go to the river where the water runs.
Wash him deep where the tides are turning.
And if you fall, and if you fall, hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down to the bottom of the river. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down, a long way down. The wolves will chase you by the pale moonlight.
Drunk and driven by a devil's hunger.
Drive your son like a railroad spike
Into the water, let it pull him under.
But though you lift him, let him drown alive.
The good Lord speaks like a rolling thunder.
Let that fever make the water rise.
Let the river run dry.
Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long